I think actually it's not it's in one way it's a contradictory, but I think that for you or for people that want to make a tour in the Nordic countries, you should know that, as Sten Ove is saying, we have been part of the music scene of Norway for many, many years, and we know a lot of people. So it's much more effective for you to go, if you know that you're having a gig at Blå, to discuss with Sten Ove by mail, how do you see the possibility in doing a gig in Bergen or Trondheim, or do you know of any other festivals or any other, and then so I think the clue is to get the first gig or the first contact that you can rely on in a country, and then from there start building. Maybe you just did one concert at Blå, that's it, and then next year you will come back and you will build a small tour, and it's like building step by step. I don't think really it makes sense using a lot of time trying to find the perfect Norwegian booker for you, and then I think it will create a lot of disappointments. It really depends, of course, on the genre, on the band maybe, but in general I think it's much better to try to build on live gigs, and one gig is better than none gigs. So start with one and then try to see how to enter the market after having been there.
Yeah, as was mentioned in the previous panels, it's a good thing to to go to these festivals like Bylarm or Spot Festival and everything. It's small festivals, but it's so concentrated. The delegates that's there, that with the booking the venue, the guys who books for venues, and booking agencies and agents in general and PR people. That is like, if you do that one festival or a couple of those festival properly, then you've pretty much mapped out quite a lot of the Scandinavian or the Nordic scene. And from there, it's then you can start sort of like milking the cow in a way, and and yeah, maybe just like but that's at least
how
that's
fat is the cow?
It's a very skinny Nordic cow. It's very and blonde.
Yeah. Well, I might add that also, when looking for the artist, if there's a proposal, I look at all the offers every time. So I look at, what other gigs they've been done. Is it just in their home country, or have they performed internationally? What are the references? If any of the colleagues can recommend them, if there's a good, media exposure. So I think, those are also as important as having somebody reliable behind the band to do the deal with, because after all, it's the music. It's about the music. If it's an appealing band, good live band with great content and something fresh to offer, that counts most. But especially with new names, use some references, use some bigger names, or with whom you have performed with. If there's another festival who has really liked your gig, I look at all those references, especially with unknown artists. So that's more important than who is actually selling the gig.
Okay, so we have the audience, we have the bands. If you bring a band, it's really a success. They have a good choice to come back to your festivals, to your venue. Do you usually invite back some artists, or you prefer to change every year completely the program?
We change completely every year, but I mean, we have had, like I said, the Paco de Lucia, but it was twice, so 2006, 2010. So some come back, but usually they play. Takes time, at least 5 years.
Okay. Okay. And do you know that many countries give funds to the bands to perform abroad? Is this help important to you in order to program these bands? If a band, you're more very interested in them, but maybe they don't have this help, you bring them anyway, or you choose another one?
I mean, it depends. For example, for us, usually from Spain, it's not so difficult, because of course, when you have, if you're just going to play a venue festival, when you gig, it becomes very expensive to buy all the tickets and everything. But for a festival, it's a little bit different. But of course, bringing bands from South America, from South Africa, from Japan, if they don't, or Australia, or if you don't have any travel support, it's hard. And we would never bring. Okay, maybe Catano Veloso. I don't know, maybe he never went to Norway, but no, we never bring a band one-off from very far. But we usually, many countries have travel support for flights. So if we are early enough planning our booking, we can succeed getting flights covered. But it's a tricky thing because it's a governmental support. So if you are not applying within a certain date, you cannot get the support. And sometimes you didn't really choose the band. So we are not we don't build our program on the bands having a support. So we, so
yeah, I understand,
it's of course if we plan it in advance. I mean, last year we were lucky because I did a special on Argentina. You see, the nationalistic, and we got 36 plane tickets from Buenos Aires to Oslo, which you can imagine. You can make the calculation of the money, it's quite a lot of money. So it was very special, and we have the same agreement with Colombia and with Chile, also Brazil. So of course, it's important to get that travel support to get big artists to Norway. But from Europe, it's not so important for our festival.
Yes, into the side of the table. Any?
Talking about whether we want to bring the same artist back again, not usually, because there's always so many new ones to present. But there are a few exceptions that we have been bringing back, like, after 5 years break or 10 years break. And we do kind of laugh about ourselves because when we think about, okay, this is very kind of like, open-minded and pretty brave lineup. These are all unknown artists. We should have something guaranteed sellers. So we look for the Swedish ladies and Cuban men. They are guaranteed sales, at the venue. But then again, we try not to do it though. We kind of think no Swedish ladies, no Cuban men, because we are too obvious with the bookings if we do that. We, kind of, not just the names, but kind of, these kind of groups. We try.
Which Swedish ladies?
Eva Dahlgren, Lisa Nilsson. It's Lisa, Anna, or Eva from Sweden. Them. So these kind of certain groups that Finns like a lot, So we try kind of, actively, not to do every year because it's too obvious. But then again, we are stiff Finns, we want to have the warmth and the sun and the kind of, laid back feeling. So we do want to, book artists which come from the Mediterranean or Latin America because, we like them. They bring something extra to our, lives. But then again, there are always new names to choose from. They don't need to be the same ones. But then again, sometimes we do take the audience's feedback in a way that they really want somebody to return. So we can do that, but it's kind of exception. But then again, as I said, if they have performed well at the venue, another festival might book them next year. So you do see the same names in Finland, but maybe, at different venues, at different festivals. So there is always a big chance to, have another gig in a short while. But as you said that also, from this like one-off gigs, from Europe, no problem. We can fly band in for one night and then back home. But anywhere further, it takes a bit more planning and maybe a bit of a tour together. And at that point, I start talking to the colleagues in the neighboring countries, if they're also interested. And already now I'm talking about an Australian band for next year because they need a lot of time to put their travel grants together. I could not fly a 7-piece band from Melbourne to Helsinki and back. So. But they are also kind of new names that we do want to do too. They are difficult bookings, but we also want to present those from Far Asia or, South America, Chile or Peru. They are expensive, but also something that we don't do very often, and that's why we should do them more. It's a bit more effort, but, we try to do them though.
Please.
In Norway, what I think is what was quite special was that I told you that the festival was funded and it was part of Concerts Norway, Rikskonsertene, which was the governmental institution funded almost 50 years ago. And the idea of Rikskonsertene, of Concerts Norway, was that every kid around Norway should have proper music in school or experience quality music in all genres. So we organize 10,000 concerts every year for kids in schools and kindergartens. Now it could be anything from like big names from the metal scene to Indian classical music to Martirio, Son de la Frontera, you know, it could be any kind of band. And one small part of the organization also did tours around Norway with like evening concerts around all the cultural houses in Norway. And the Oslo World was part of this office of touring. So I think when our new Ministry of Culture decided to shut down that department of Concerts Norway, many people applauded it because they thought it will spend too much money funding tours. So some of the cultural centers around, or the clubs around Norway, felt that the government was giving a lot of money to these governmental tours, and then that money should be spent and spread around Norway so the clubs could get the money themselves. And now, 5 years later, because this happened 5 years ago, the festival was saved. So we were sort of saved. We were taken out of the government. We were made independent. And for the festival, I think it was a very good thing. And the tours were cancelled. They were stopped. I think the sad part of it was that now in Norway, there's no one that would tour bands like they did. You know, we did Omar Portuondo for 12 concerts in Norway. We did Miguel Poveda, 10 concerts in Norway. We did Martirio Son de la Frontera, 10 concerts in Norway. A lot of like big names played all around Norway, and for many, many, many years. And now, of course, when you spread the money around, what is left is a commercial, you know, because you don't have the audience. So if you are going to present Omar Portuondo in 12 cities in Norway, you need subvention because a small town wouldn't afford it. So this was something really special in Norway that was cancelled, and in my opinion, this is another debate, which has been a very strong debate in Norway. But in my opinion, now 5 years later, you can see that the music scene or the touring bands are much more homogenic, you know, much more Nordic, much more the same. So you cannot take the risk in presenting a band that is not really a box office top seller in the cultural houses around. In that sense, I mean, a club like Blå is taking a lot of risks every day because they present so many cool bands, a lot of newcomers. But it's a city, Oslo club with a very great audience. But now we are talking about Mo I Rana in the north of Norway, you know, cities that are lost in space, you know, that received Martirio. I remember it very well because she called me at 8 in the night and she said, Alexandra, there is no one in the city. There is no one here. There is no people here. And she came into the hall and it was full. Probably the whole city was there in the hall. That's why it was empty outside. But this is something that was very special for Norway, and it was like an educational project that is not longer existing, but it's existing for the kids. Yeah.
I think it's time to questions from the audience. As this morning you have been very shy, if anyone wants to make a question in Catalan, don't worry, I will translate it. It's in English better, but please talk. Any questions? You have these amazing people here. Take the chance. Okay. Introduce yourself first. Thank you.
Well, quack, quack.
This afternoon.
I mean, I've got many questions, but I don't want to steal any time from the attendees. My name is Aurelio Santos, and I've been working intensively for the last 26 years in the local scene, mainly in Barcelona, Catalonia, UK, and the US, both into jazz, hip-hop, world music, and well, you name it. If you like music, you like everything. And I've been hearing a lot of very interesting things, but my main question is that when you have one representative from the club scene, and you have two representatives from the festival scene, both of or probably all of you are receiving funds from the European community, probably diverted through I'm just asking. Probably you're going to say no, or you're going to give me your impression. But there's a lot of money that the European community are investing into making us believe that Europe exists, and it's a reality rather than a dream. And they channel that money through the local institutions, and that money doesn't always reach. Most definitely the club promoters, but lots of money remains on the festivals. I'm talking about Barcelona, I'm talking about Catalonia in Spain, and that money doesn't really get to its citizens that also are part of that money in terms of taxes and everything. So I find it really interesting when people talk about their festivals, how big they are, how interesting they are, how appealing they are, but how little representation from local artists they have. Obviously talking about the international, the big names, the ones that they repeat every year. In Spain, in particular, in Barcelona, there's guys that they could even have their festivals called after them. We could talk about the Barcelona Chick Corea Festival, for example, or the Brad Meldau Jazz Festival in Barcelona as well, and so on. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of public money invested into music, and from my opinion, and I think I've got like a long perspective on this field. It reaches the same old people, same agencies that own many festivals. The festivals might be called Jazz Festival, Guitar Festival, World Music Festival, Percussion Festival, whatever, but it's the same people owning it, same people having the money from the government, and same artists year after year touring those same festivals and also having partnership with other festivals using the same strategies. So my question is, and obviously I'm gonna have probably a more a closer kind of perspective to Sten, due that he's working in a club like Bla Club, which I know, not that I have been, but I've heard beautiful things about it. Wouldn't it be beautiful to have, with all due respect to you guys organizing festivals, that governments, not just in Finland or Norway, but in Spain and many other European cities, that they think more about the club scene to create strong projects and for local artists to have a perspective and the support or the sensation that they care. Because what I can see behind you, festivals and venues, how attract the attention of programmers. You in Barcelona, talking from your perspective, from the northern countries, for local promoters, local musicians, trying to sell their projects or products to your market. It will be really interesting to be maybe in Oslo or maybe in Helsinki and see local musicians and local promoters trying to attend to these same events, because I don't see, it's all the same old, talking about the same old thing. But what I think is that money goes to the same places. Local artists don't care. They're not visible. Obviously, you book them, you have to. But way back in time, all over the place, there was an obligation from the government to book local artists in clubs and in festivals. Do those laws still exist up there? That's one of my questions.
Okay.
You can start with defending yourself.
Well, I don't see how I should defend myself. Okay. First of all, Norway is not part of the European Union, so we don't get so much European money. And we haven't succeeded as Oslo World to get our applications for the EU through yet. So until now, we haven't spent your tax money on our concerts. Yeah. I understand. I'm joking. No, but I'm saying I understand what you say. And when I think that when we are invited here, it's I think because in my case we have been a festival that has been very looking abroad and invited artists from everywhere to Norway, which is a quite special thing in a Norwegian perspective, because most of the other festivals based in Norway book very locally. you know, the Øya Festival, which is one of our biggest rock festivals. They have, of course, all the big names as well, Björk, PJ Harvey, everything, but they have a very large group of local bands programmed, and their main aim is to sort of give them space to fly. So I think I didn't really understand your question, but yeah, but I think that that in Norway is a very democratic, very in a country where you are too much following the rules. To be honest, it's too much. You know, you have so many rules, so you wouldn't see. I would never make like the Archetti festival. You know, it would be weird in a Norwegian setting. In Argentina, it would be normal. It's in the Alexandra Archetti festival. It would be totally normal. In Norway, this wouldn't happen. And I think also for the money, you have a lot of laws following up. You know, corruption, you know, having a lot of how to spend public money. You have a lot of instructions. So you can say that to get public funding, it's good for a festival. It's necessary for our festival. But also to follow up the reports, you need to do it right. So you can't just get the money and do whatever you want with the money. So you have to follow certain rules. And it's rules on how many people you can hire working with the festival. You can't like use everything for administration and nothing for the bands. You have to have a certain division of geography, or you know, there are some rules that you have to follow in our case. And I think for almost all the festivals that are getting an important support from the government, it's quite different from what you describe from the Spanish scene. It's not like this in Norway at all, because you are really followed up by the government and by the funders. It's not that you can just take the money and do whatever you like. Yeah.
Well, we are actually funded by the EU through the Live Europe network. But the Creative Europe program is. Even though Norway is not a part of the EU, we're part of the Schengen Agreement, which is also the Creative Europe program, including the EU countries and the neighboring countries. So it's also including Turkey, amongst others. But we don't get that much funding. We don't get any funding from the city of Oslo. We do get some fundings from the Arts Council in Norway, and we get some fundings from the EU. And both the EU program, which is specifically for up and coming emerging European talents, we are obligated to only book bands that's not from Norway. For the fundings we get from the Norwegian Arts Council, we're not demanded to book local acts because we don't get any fundings from the city of Oslo. But the statutes are pretty much that we're not fully funded. So, and we also have to deliver in a budget. So the budgets from the Arts Council in Norway for all kinds of organizers, yearly organizers and festivals, they never fully fund anything. So you deliver a budget on your actual booking costs. Or with the administration and everything, and they partly fund your booking costs according to the budget. So it's not like anything's left in the organization. And also, Bla is run privately with private owners, but it's divided into one booking company and one company that runs the actual venue and the bar. So it's all too separated, like the culture is separated from the regular bar and administrational runnings of things. And it's in the statutes of of Bla. If we actually earn any money from the bookings, the owners aren't allowed to earn money from it. It all circulates back into culture. So that's our own statutes. It's not necessarily that everyone has it like that, but that's at least how we run stuff. Which can make us, if we earn money, which can make us grow and be better next year around as well. And I was looking at the figures that we get from the Norwegian Arts Council. We get 350,000 Norwegian kroners, which is roughly 38,000 euros a year. Divided on 470, it sounds like a good good amount of money. But divided on 417 events, it's only down to 91 euros per event. So it's not like it's not like yes. So we're still reliant on doing a lot of work to get this working. But at least they're subsidizing us on stuff that we want to take a risk on, which we know that we're not necessarily going to earn money on, but we just want to do it because it's worthwhile.
As far as the Finnish festivals are concerned, there are festivals, small and big ones, who have applied for the EU grants and have received them, but they have been mostly in order to create European-wide networks for collaborations. And as far as I know, there have been for commissioning works together for different festivals, or forming some kind of network so that they can do joint bookings or share ideas. So the EU funds which have been coming to the Finnish festival scene have been actually kind of Europe-wide for the special networks and for especially the content, the new content, and also to reach new audiences. Because the festivals are pretty much the same as they've always been, and the audiences are getting older, and it's kind of a challenge to get new audiences growing up with some of the festivals. So I think the funds have primarily have been applied to support this kind of development, that the new audiences are found and new ways of reaching them, and also making or conceptualizing the festivals to maybe suit the modern purposes and the needs. Because it's just that you just provide a lineup. Nowadays, it's more about it has to be the food and the drinks and the environment and the surroundings and everything. So I think it's more into developing these festivals and also collaborating on the European level. So I would also say that, like in Norway, legally there would not even be a chance to milk the money for just supporting maybe certain kind of international commercial profile. There are clubs which are receiving grants, but that's also in order to vitalize the live scene. Maybe, to get some kind of a series of club concerts alive for a few years, because they are small clubs and they don't make much money. They are pretty much dependent on the door money and the ticket sales. So there are some projects which are EU funded, but that's to support the local grassroots level scene to get the newcomers, kind of into the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? Més preguntes?
I don't know if we answered your question. Because,
Well, I think it can open a very long discussion about public policies, support.
No, I'm not even going to go.
Okay.
Most definitely, some of my questions were answered, and I truly agree with most of the stuff that you said. Again, same thing I'm going to say, is the same old, and it will be like that forever, because that's the music industry and that's how it goes. Musician is the one making less out of everything. There's one very interesting thing that you said before, Minna, and probably you too, Sten, talking about the obstacles, all right? Obstacles. I don't know how agents would feel about being looked at as obstacles, When we're talking about selling records, for example, whoever is involved in a record making, in terms of the studio, in terms of the design, the packaging, the delivery, the warehouse, money and everything, that's part of the record, and that's something that should be paid. Otherwise, there will be a lot of people unemployed, and not many things would make sense. I totally agree with making it yourself, delivering it yourself, designing it yourself is beautiful, to do all of those things. But we should never look at people as obstacles, because there's a lot of people working intensively for musicians and for artists, and they need to be represented, and they need to be part of the process. And I've been a promoter, and I'm a promoter, and I approach, and I have personal friends on the other side as a musician, but I will always go through their agent, I will always go through their manager, and I will always go through to the sister if it's a purpose in the whole thing. So we gotta be really, really careful in how we say things, because it's kind of itchy when you are considered to be an obstacle.
No.
If I see someone approaching one of my artists, just because it's easier to talk to the artist to make it cheaper,
No.
to get the artist.
That's not the point.
Probably I misunderstood.
No, I'm also an agent myself, so I know, that side of the business as well. What I meant that if there's a artist in America who has a Finnish representative who is dealing with an agent in France, and the bandit has a management in the US, there are like lots of steps in, on the way until they reach me. So it's a problem of communication. It's a problem of, kind of missing the deadlines, a domino effect. So not really, I maybe used the wrong word, obstacle. It's just kind of making the deals more difficult, delayed, more expensive. I always use agents just because I know they are an essential part of the, the business, and I always make the deals with agencies or managements, never with the musicians directly, because I know the agents and managers, they need to do their share as well. But by saying that it's an obstacle, I meant that when there are many middlemen on the way, from the artist to the promoter, with local and the sub-local and the very local, it's just too many people on the way sharing the same cake and delaying the process. And that's because I have experienced that. So I rather go to the source, as close to the source as possible. I have total respect of all the people, doing this in business, whether they are managers or agents or distributors or, promoters, whatever. So
the question was if we used because the other panel was saying that it was important to get a Norwegian distributor or booker based in Norway. And when we talk, none of us actually work so much with the Norwegian agencies. So, but we all said that we always work with. We always work with European agents or sometimes with some Latin American bookers directly. But usually we go through the European agencies or managements when we book our bands, and almost never directly through the bands if they don't have, some of them have their wife, but it should be the manager. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples of Norwegian agents which are basically just taking 20% for email forwarding, which is the same email I got the same afternoon. And I get an email from let's say a Belgian agency, and then 10 minutes later I get an email from a Norwegian agency, and it's the same copy-paste email. Yeah. So it's just, instead of dealing directly with the Belgian agency that actually has the artist in Europe, I have to go through this Norwegian agent and then go through there, and then it's 20% extra. That's the obstacle.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not agents in general.
No.
Have another question here?
Two things I wanted to. One is about what you just said. What you have said before.
Micro.
Yeah, sorry. This comes to something that you said earlier about a supposed contradiction, about what was said earlier today. And I was saying that I was lucky to work with some of you guys. There's no such contradiction in my opinion, because it's different to deal with festivals than actually building up the career of an artist in a given market. And that's a big, big difference. While a festival can help you outspread the word quicker. And I was not talking about bookers in particular. And actually, I'm not talking in this case about bookers at all, but rather whether your partner is a PR or is a label, depending on whether the label is able to do the job or not. Do I explain myself?
Yeah.
Which leads me to the second thing, which is what you were saying, Aurelio. It's from the artist perspective, I have to agree about what they said. And I said this in the morning also about the Scandinavian countries, where you can actually access the programmers directly. This is not a problem. It might happen to you in Germany or in classical venues, or even in France. And unless you have an agent there, it's very hard to get to them or for them to pay attention to you at all. It's not the case in most of at least in my experience. Which changes the thing for the interest of the artist, which is what you were saying. Because that's what can happen to you, especially if you have an artist in development and you need to go to these countries and your budget is limited. If you can deal with these persons here and make a deal, this probably 20 or 25% or 15% that the middle agent is getting, which will probably become a deal breaker. it will prevent you from actually getting there, which in some cases, in my experience, you cannot avoid. But it's not the case in this. Well, actually, we did Omar Portuondo directly. It was a Spanish company at the time. And we were not skipping somebody. We were just not having somebody in between.
That was from you to them, not from them to you. If it's from you to them, it's
No, but it's the same. It's just you don't skip someone that is not there. Because in this very case, you don't need it. Because you have someone to talk to directly. So, and actually it reverts to the artist, because you found a situation where if this 20% can make the difference to you of actually making the show or not making it, or actually taking money out of your own pocket to actually make it to the show and pay to that middleman, which in this case you can avoid. Did I make myself clear?
I think Norway in particular is very different from the rest of the Nordic region. Like in Sweden, it's more a lot like agency based, much more at least than in Norway. In Norway, it's much more common that you have bookers at the venues approaching people. It's not, you don't rely necessarily on external organizers in the city. Although I also collaborate with some of them, but I do most of my bookings myself, and that's also what other venues in Oslo do themselves as well. So you don't have that culture for having an external organizer, because you're your own organizer, or the band is their own organizer. So that's just like how the culture is built up around in the concert sector in Norway.
Okay.
My email's on my webpage, so I'm not hard to get a hold of.
My cell phone too.
Yeah.
Okay. More questions from the audience? No? Yeah.
Sorry, just to return a little bit with the thing, I am Carmina from the drum agency. So I am working multidisciplinary, music, circus, theater, etc. So coming again to the thing from the agencies, I think it's necessary to make a big difference between the big artists, because you have spoken about all the artists that you have had in Oslo. Naturally, there is high-level artists, naturally. They have a very good agencies or his own agents. But there is many people, and I think all the people that is here is, we can say, is medium, small size, and it is quite difficult to arrive to make the promotion to in all the planet, in all the world. So sometimes it's very good to have an agency, local agency, that is helping to know the country, to know how it's working. And for example, I work a lot with import, and this is very useful for people coming from France, from other countries, that is someone here that is helping to promote the group and to see how is with the characteristics from contracts in Spain. This is quite difficult. And most of festivals, there is many festivals and a lot of venues from city councils that they don't speak English. So it's really the agency in Spain, I think it's very useful to import products here in cultural products in Spain. For the export, I think for little, small productions or medium productions, it could be very good to have someone in the country and to work together with someone in the country.
This is, as Sten Ove says, I think it's special with Norway because there are a few, like Atomic, as I said, which is quite big because they have worked with, big names. Live Nation, but you don't. And Gold Star has worked a little bit with some non-American or non-UK based acts, but there are not so many agents in Norway working like you describe. There is no as I know, at least, there is no one I would call personally to ask for a Spanish band in Norway. They don't exist. They don't know the scene. They are not there. So it wouldn't be a very good ambassador for you in Norway. So I think that for the Norwegian market, the most important thing is to get advice or to get to play at the venues directly. And now you know Sten Ove, so you will probably get a lot of emails from today or us. But I think the best way is to sort of think of our market as a very much a direct market. The agents from here contact us directly. And there are a lot of venues, and I think as you said that there are 170 festivals in Denmark. I think in Norway there are more than 500. It's a lot of festivals, you know, too many festivals, a lot of jazz festivals. The jazz scene is...
I actually checked it up, and including festivals that just has like one live act. It was in 2014, it was 4,430 festivals, but like pure music festivals is around 500, yeah.
So it's it's a big scene, but we don't, there are not so many agents working like you describe. While in France, this is very common. There are a lot of French agents, all of them. I mean, if I want to book, or even here in Spain, if I want to book Silvia Perez Cruz, for example, there are so many options. There are so many people I can talk to because everyone is representing her, you know. Maybe not her, but you know, it's happened to me, like now an artist like Dom La Nena, which is for a Norwegian audience very, very new. She has a British agent that contacted me, a German guy, a Greek guy, you know, a lot of people representing the same artist, you know, and for a Norwegian market, it's not like this, you know, that it doesn't really exist because we don't book so many bands from outside of the Nordic, US, UK market. So there is still a very open hole there, and that's why, I mean, our festival, Førde Festival, a festival in the summer, some festivals, there is of course the Cosmopolite, which is a club in Oslo, which is booking quite a diverse program. Blå also has quite a diverse program. You have some clubs, some festivals that are quite open, but I think you would struggle to find that person who would be helping you to open the doors, to be quite honest. Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree. It's the very same situation in Finland. If you ask, you know, suitable candidates, you know, as a Finnish local agent, I could maybe give you 3 or 4. There are not many. So, you know, it's not an issue that agent from Spain, you know, approaches the venues or the festivals directly, because it's a very small scene, and people do talk. There's a bush radio in a way that, you know, even if it doesn't look like the word is not getting anywhere, it still might. If it's a good act, people do talk. There's this kind of like a network of the professionals that people do talk, and I suggest bands that I haven't been able to book maybe to another festival that you should take them. I can't, but you should take them. But also, you know, the previously mentioned kind of artist exchange is really relevant. If you know one artist in Finland, use that connection and try to, you know, get a couple of more names through that person. It's just a matter of, you know, finding some people who can, you know, speak on your behalf and, you know, put the foot on the doorstep. It's about kind of getting started somewhere. But really, you know, the situation is the same in Finland. There are not many professionals working on the field that would represent newcomers on the market, although there is potential. But if you can't find any, then it's just a matter of approaching yourself, put the musicians, you know, to work, and whatever you can do, use the references, find one person who will like your band, and maybe that person can, you know, put your CD to the radio play, and that radio person is actually involved with some kind of a, you know, program committee, and that program committee can have a say to, you know, a festival lineup, because it is a small market and people do have many hats as well. They might not look like they're promoting or booking, but they still might have a say to these issues. So even one person to start with can make the difference, and then, you know, expand the network from there.
And I think it's also the same. I mean, one thing is our festivals or the venues, but for the musicians, it's the same, because and I'm not now talking about, Jan Garbarek, for example, which is the most famous Norwegian jazzman, but almost all the jazz musicians in my generation, 30, 40, 50 years old, are managing themselves in Norway. I mean, they don't have a booking agent, they don't have a management. There are 2 or 3 managements in Norway having all the bands, but of course when you have all the bands, you can't work so good with all the bands. So in Norway, the one of the main problems of our market is really to find good managements that can develop the Norwegian bands and make them shine abroad, which is in a way, as I don't know if it's true, but what I feel that you have here in Spain and also in France and in other European countries is very good managements, very good booking agents that really do a lot for the bands, which in Norway is it's really, we miss it. We miss agents that are really developing the young scene. I mean, they are coming now within the rock scene, you have them, but it's still a market that is not so well developed. So that's why we as bookers work very independently, and also artists work quite independently.
Mm-hmm. And also, back to what you were saying, if there's some kind of language barrier or whatever, if I understood you correctly, is if an artist has a language barrier or isn't that confident within how these structures work, then it's at least it's like make yourself export friendly, as you said. Like there's maybe a lot of like Spanish or Catalonian managements that would cater for a new and upcoming band. But if you're contacting, is it on?
No, it's on.
And if you just and if you're just contacting a random venue in Oslo, it's not necessary that you that your band or this artist is necessarily very export friendly. I would say it's the criteria would almost be to at least get a management and a system in your own home country, and then go abroad if you need some kind of assistance to what you're doing. But if you only reaching, at least that's what I'm saying to a lot of Norwegian bands that's starting up themselves, because you have this very simple structure on how things work in Norway. Just do it yourself, because you're not going to sell any albums to begin with anyways. Because of the record sales are dropping. Be your own label, be your own booking agency. Because if you do alternative rock music, you can only play five cities in Norway, and then in each city you maybe have like an option of 2 or 3 venues. So it's not a lot of work. So that's why in Norway it's much easier to be a DIY artist, but to come into that market, you might need to to make yourself, on my side, import friendly.
But maybe one idea can be that what I know, I have a friend in Argentina. They started a big network of managers in South America, which is very successful. I think there are like 130 management bookers who have a network, because the networks are always the venues or the festivals. But I mean, you working in the field with the bands directly, they have created this network within managers and bookers, and it's a very good way of exchanging and sharing, because I think what we are doing as a mistake as festivals and in the business in general, we are keeping all the information for ourselves. You know, we are like, if I give my contact to that guy, he might take my job. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you do it, but it might be like a problem. So if you share your contacts, if you know that you've been to Norway, I mean, you worked with international bookers, ask him, you know, share the knowledge. How did it work? Who do you trust? It's a little bit the same as we do, you know, sharing knowledge. And sometimes I feel that we don't need Music Export Norway. We need Music Import Norway, because Music Export Norway in Norway is working a lot with the multinational, you know, like Nico and Vince, Madcon, Kygo, the bands that are already in the stars, people that have done it themselves, and then we can just tell that, they are from Norway. It's our pride that they are selling records. And it's. I think that there is a lack of import knowledge everywhere. So maybe we should start music import. Something everywhere. And then we can ask questions to these people. Music import. How do we import bands from Spain to Norway?
Okay, so we have 2 minutes left. If you have any more questions, short.
Well, we've spoken about the musicians, about the industry, about the festivals, about the clubs, about public funding, local funding, whatever. That's one question. I don't know anything about the press up in your countries, but from what I see in Spain, in Barcelona in particular, once upon a time there was a person called the music journalist. I don't see it existing anymore. Now they're like civil workers. They work for a salary and they're sent to whichever concert to cover it, take the pictures, write a little bit about it, maybe not filling it. I mean, I see a serious lack of independent press professionals. There used to be lots and very good ones in here, most of them working in other fields or probably directing festivals. But what's your experience up in Norway and in Finland? Do you still rely on press? Do they still help you? Is there any good channels to probably channel South American music, for example, proper jazz journalists, proper rock journalists? Is there a good press, professional kind of feel?
That's not a short question.
Okay,
No.
No. Well, there are still some very good journalists. There are a few, but it's like you say. It's the pressure of the media. They are having to write the reports on Adele and the main big stars playing. So the more sort of research articles about something more in depth is really suffering. And even we do still have, luckily, I don't know how long it's going to last, but we do have the national Norwegian broadcasting in television and radio, and without commercials. So still the government-funded radio and is, in my opinion, the best. But it's also now going through a lot of changes and much more blah blah blah, without any content and less information. But luckily, we still have, Klassekampen, couple of leftist like very good journalists that are trying their best to create music stuff, and they have created this a couple of years ago a music magazine who comes every week in one of the leftist newspapers, which is not bad, and we have a close collaboration with another newspaper and a radio channel who we work very closely with. So in our case, for a festival, we have to work a lot to get a good press and to convince them, to make the stories. I think it's much harder, of course, for a club to get the everyday press. It's impossible almost, but there are some journalists still that are sort of holding up, their pen and trying their best. But of course, it's changing, and it's changing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid we're in the same situation. The newspapers have got rid of the cultural journalists. There's a few freelancers, only very few who are having like a monthly pay, and everybody relies on those, handful of journalists within music in general. There's a couple of really good classical music magazines, a couple of really good rock pop magazines still, but talking about the jazz and world music, not really very professional. So it's going down, and it's really sad. But the festival is in a good position in a way that one of our main collaborators is the the main newspaper, and they cover our festival really well, all the gigs, all the performances. And also the other one of my artistic advisors works for the Radio Helsinki, which helps a lot because he can kind of, create the buzz and, play the playlist of the lineup. So we have these kind of, internal sort of, assistance there to get the media attention. But generally speaking, it's a very sad scene, and only a handful of really good journalists who can still talk about the music properly and who focus, whether it's jazz or contemporary classical or something. But seems to be the same everywhere.
In Norway, you have journalists. They just still have their jobs in the cultural sections of the newspapers and the radios, but. One problem we see is that they love to talk about themselves, their own programs, so they write about their own programs or their, or Idol or The Voice, so they write. So you create the content of your own programs, which is a problem. So you are too close to the stuff. So I think this is worldwide.
Well, as a music critic myself, I can tell this is a global phenomenon. It's not here in the Nordic countries, everywhere. Okay, it has been a very long and interesting conversation, I think. I want to take the cue for what Alexander said before. We are here, one of the goals of this conference is to share information between us and them, all together. You have another chance to share information from 10 p.m. at the Pulitzer Hotel. We have there having a drink with all the panelists of this day, and tomorrow, of course, the speed meetings. So Alexandra, Sten, Minna, thank you very much for your patience and your collaborations, and see you around.
In Scandinavia, you wouldn't go at 10 p.m. It's too late.
This is not Scandinavia. Welcome to the Mediterranean.